All right, guys, 7 o'clock. Got a few guys still joining in, so we're going to give it a minute or so to let everyone get logged in and get on board with us. Hope everyone had a great day today at work or on the water. Whatever you were fortunate enough to be at these days, it's a privilege to be at work, and man, even a better privilege whenever you can get some time to be on the water. So hope everyone had a great day, and we're going to get things started here in about a minute or so. And up here on the box, guys, where it says Paul Mickley, this is actually Travis Huckaby. So just wanted to get you guys in tune. Didn't want to confuse some of you guys. So just giving you a heads up. The box is off for the evening, and it's Travis Huckaby putting on this webinar this evening. All right, guys, let's get this thing started. We got a good crowd here tonight. I appreciate all your guys' support and taking some time to kick back and relax and talk a little fishing with me, and we'll go over some things, and hopefully you guys can get something out of this. Myself, I'm a tournament angler and just an avid fisherman. What I try to touch on is a little bit for everybody. It could be even the beginning anglers that are trying to learn. So you guys that are advanced, bear with me. I'm definitely going to touch on advanced stuff, but like I said, bear with me a little bit. I'm going to go through the basics from the beginners because, we all started there. So we're going to talk a little bit about it, and we'll get deep into this thing and get it all situated on how to catch more fish with this underspin. It's been a lot of talk, and this bait's been just producing a lot of fish in the last couple of years, and it's been one of those deals that, a lot of bass anglers keep things pretty quiet. And it's kind of funny to talk about, but I've got quite a few emails saying, how in the world are you going to do a webinar already on underspins? And it's one of those things, guys. I like sharing with everybody what's going on the water, and the latest and greatest things that are out. And I'm pretty much an open book. I like to help guys catch more fish. Shoot, I think it's one of those things we're all out there to catch fish and have a good time. So I'm not the biggest top secret person out there, but so that's why I'm sharing this stuff with you guys. And I just greatly appreciate you guys tuning in. And like I said, I'm going to get a little bit of grief from this one, but I'm not going to hold anything back from you guys. So I appreciate you guys here. So let's get into this thing. All right, guys, just an introduction. I've seen a lot of the people that are chiming in have been here before. I greatly appreciate the support. But for the new guys, I've seen some new names come across. My name is Travis Huckaby. I've been competing in bass fishing for over 8 years. Started in the Future Pro Tour out here in California. Did real well with that. That's what led me on to getting my foot in the door with Navionics. I won the Navionics Cup Championship 2 times, and went on from there. Fished the Berkeley Big Bass Shootout with one of the Super 12 qualifiers. Went on, fished the TBF Federation. Did real well in the Federation. Made it into the second round of the state team qualifiers, where we got to fish against the other states, and we did real well. And then also moved on from that, fished the FLW Rayovac in 2015, and did really well. My first rookie year out fishing FLW Rayovac, I actually qualified to go back east to the TOC, or the FLW Championship. So I was really happy with that accomplishment. 2016, I fished the Wild West Pro-Ams, did really well, caught a couple checks. Same with the FLW, selected a couple checks from FLW and Wild West, and I had a great time. Both of those circuits are great circuits. So this year I've been fishing the FLW Costa Series, and I've been doing real good. I'm up there in the points race, hoping to make hoping to qualify again this year for the championship, the FLW Championship at the end of the year. A few of the sponsors, guys, I got to mention: Navionics, River to Sea, Phoenix Rods, Lew's Reels, Humminbird, Minn Kota, CNC Marine, Ranger Boats, Mercury, Cal Coast Fishing, EcoPro Tungsten. Without these guys and their support, it would be a rough grind out there on the water and trying to keep everything financially stable and all that good stuff, because you got to do a lot of traveling, put a lot of time on the water to compete at the pro level. And it's definitely, they definitely make it a lot easier to compete. So special thanks to them. Anytime you guys need anything, all these companies here that I'm sponsored by have solid products. I'm very proud of the sponsors I have because the product sells itself. And like I said, if you need anything, we got the old Tackle Warehouse or any of those good distributors. They cover a lot of their products. So you can order anything you need from the net through these fine sponsors. All right, guys. Tonight we're going to talk about Underspin 101 for catching bass. I'm going to go into the Underspin, the intro to the Underspin. I've had guys that are like, we've heard about it, but I don't think I've ever seen it. So with that being said, like I said in the beginning, we're going to start from ground zero and work our way up to some little more tricky stuff, some little tips and tricks you could do with the bait and that type of good stuff. So we're going to get an introductory into it. Then I'm going to go over the setups on what I throw it with. And then also I'm going to touch on when and where I throw the Underspin. And also, guys, I'm seeing a few questions come through. Some guys are raising their hands. I'm going to do this presentation. It's going to be about a half hour. And then after the half hour, I'm going to open it up for answers and questions. And I'll chat with you guys off the chat and answer all the questions there live. So give me about a half hour here, and I'll answer you guys' questions. All right, guys, let's get into the intro of this Underspin. The Underspin, guys, is is a very versatile bait. This bait comes in all sorts of sizes, from 1/8 ounce to ounce to I've even seen 4s where guys are making these Underspins for ocean fishing to 1.5 ounces to 2 ounces. So with that being said, there's a huge array of sizes and baits to throw with this thing. So that's one of the keys to this bait, guys, that makes it very versatile. You can go finesse with it, or you can go heavy. You can go shallow and cover water with it like a spinner bait, or you can go deep with it. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but that's what I'll be touching on, is kind of when and where I throw it. But as an overall, guys, this Underspin, as you can see here, we have on the left-hand side, we got Underspins with exposed hooks. And then on the right-hand side, we've got the Underspin that's made by Owner. And that right there, guys, is an awesome bait for guys that like to fish on a lot of grass, structure, stuff like that, because you can throw that thing weedless. So going along with that, guys, as you can see here, on the left-hand side, I have two of my favorite profile baits. I got a paddle tail and a fluke style. So with those different baits, guys, it really gets into the key of when and where to throw it. But I just want to go over with you guys the baits you can go with is, like I said, the paddle tail, the fluke style. I mean, you can go from the super fluke to the standard fluke to even, guys, I'll tell you right now, 2 years ago, whenever I got my hands on the Underspin, I went out with it, and to be honest with you, my first 2 outings, I struggled a little bit. It was one of those things that I just wasn't really confident with it because I hadn't thrown it before. So when I go out with a new bait, I took 3 rods with 3 different styles of Underspins on it and 3 different weights of Underspins. So going out and doing that, I was pretty much in just the EcoPro Tungsten swing shad or the Kitech style paddle tails. That was a big craze I was in, throwing those things on like my umbrella rigs and stuff. So I was throwing all those baits on the Underspin in just different weights. And it was one of those things. I was catching fish on it, but it was one of those deals I wasn't setting no records or anything like that. So I knew there was more to the bait, so I started kind of thinking outside the box. Okay, let's match the hatch. So one time I was up at Lake Oroville here in California, and a lot of the majority of the fish there are spotted bass. So I ended up downsizing. I went to a fluke, as you can see here on the bottom left, and with that bait, I started catching quite a bit of fish. And I'm like, huh, okay, I downsized, and these fish really like that. So I even took it another step, and oh my gosh, it was like lights out. But the caliber of fish was a lot smaller. I was throwing just a 3-inch Mr. Twister grub on this thing, and oh my goodness, those spots couldn't stand it. They were hammering it. It was a fun day catching fish. We went out that day. We probably caught 40, 50 fish on that underspin, and that was one of the days that you really need with the new bait to really build confidence in it. So I got out, figured some things out with it, had one rod with a grub on it, one with the fluke on it, one with the paddle tail on it, and went out. The next day, I stayed up at Oroville for 3 days straight. Second day, I went out in the morning, and oh my gosh, it was like the first 10 casts I had a 5-fish limit with that grub. So I put it down and went to the fluke style bait, caught a couple bigger, better fish on that. And I'm like, okay, the bites are not as, the quantity wasn't there, but the caliber of fish was a little bit better. So then I stepped up to like the 3.8 swing shad and the 3.8 Kitech, and put 1 or 2 good ones in the boat that were in the 4-pound class, and they were spotted bass, so they were good fish. So just with that being said, guys, whenever you go out, like I said, it's all about building confidence. You can't tie something on, especially this bait, row it 3 or 4 times and be like, oh, I didn't get bit, and put it down. You gotta play, you gotta experiment with this bait a little bit. Because like I said, one of the big things key is to matching the hatch. And like I said, I downsized to that grub, and it was I was just throwing. It was kind of like my fluke here on the screen. It was a pearl with a blue back style, and it was one of those things. In Lake Oroville, the bait fish in there are real small, so they were keen on that. I pretty much got the bait downsized to the size they're used to seeing, and they gorged on it. So that's a huge key, guys, is matching the hatch and playing with these baits. And also, the baits you see here on the left-hand side, guys, this underspin here is made by Eco Pro Tungsten. It's a tungsten weighted head with a trocar hook. And guys, it's the trocar hook is a mean hook. It's real strong, and it's got an excellent sharp hook on it. And with that tungsten head, the head profile is a lot smaller than, per se, a lead head, because the tungsten weighs more per mass than lead does. So with that being said, you can get the 1/8 ounce. I believe there's 1/8 ounce, half, or 1/8, quarter, half, and 3/4. But with Eco Pro Tungsten, they make a lot that are just quarter or 3/8 and half. And what you see here, guys, is the 1/2 ounce. I tend to throw half a lot because it's one of those things that I'm going to get into. Don't want to get ahead of myself here on the techniques. But what you're looking at here is the Eco Pro Tungsten Underspin and 1/2 ounce. And then on the right-hand view, this is the owner style of their underspin. I believe it's the owner frenzy or something like that. I'll get the name. You guys can feel free to email me with any other questions throughout the evening, or even in weeks ahead if you have any questions. But like I said, this is the Eco Pro Tungsten Underspin and the owner's version of the Underspin in a Texas rig setup. So, all right, guys, we hit the weights, we hit the profiles, we've hit the matching the hatch to get more bites. So let's move on. Next one. Like I said, guys, with the weight of these baits, they go all the way. You can get them from 1/8 ounce to heavy. I prefer the 1/2 ounce. And when I'm throwing my 1/2 ounce, guys, I'm throwing my Phoenix M1. It's my Phoenix M1 7/8 medium heavy rod. And I've got that on the Lose Tournament MB 6-8-1. And with that specific rod and reel, guys, the Phoenix rod has a good backbone and a fast tip. And I usually throw, when I'm throwing that 1/2 ounce, I'm throwing it on 12-pound fluorocarbon, which allows the bait to sink. And if I make, then one of the things that's cool about this bait, guys, is you can cover a ton of water. You can cast these underspins a country mile. You can just, I mean, you could make some long casts with them and fish those things out there. So it's one of those deals, whenever you got that much line out, I like going with the fluorocarbon because it sinks, and also it's not as much, it doesn't have as much line stretch as per se a monofilament line. So with that being said, if you get bit on a long cast, that 6-8-1 reel, you can catch up to that fish, and when you set the hook, that fluorocarbon is not going to stretch as much as that mono, and you can get that hook in them. And that's one of those things, guys, with this exposed trocar hook, it doesn't take much. You don't have to rock the whole boat when you set the hook, you know what I mean? You can reel down with that 6-8-1. You can just reel as fast as you can and sweep, and that exposed sharp hook usually gets them right in the roof of the mouth every time. And I mean, it's one of those deals that, knock on wood, I've had a really good hookup ratio with this rig, and a good ratio of getting the fish in the boat. So medium heavy rod, you don't want a broomstick. Like I said, you got an exposed hook that's sharp and strong. You want a rod with a little bit of a backbone and a soft tip so that fish eats that thing. You want the rod to load, reel on them, sweep, and that'll set the hook on it. And then the backbone of the rod will do the work and load that fish in the boat. Now, with this, guys, being that the weight ratio on these underspins goes from very light to heavy, I also have been out and thrown this on a finesse rig where I've got it on my spinning rig, and I've got it on 6 to 8 pound fluorocarbon, 1/8 ounce, and just covering water with that light, smaller profile, and finesse, pretty much a finesse presentation, and clear water. And that's one of the keys of getting a lot of the better bite, or a lot of better bites. You're gonna fish that finesse one a little slower, get it out there, and like I said, if you're in clear water, you definitely want to go to that finesse rig. And these baits, guys, they kind of look like it'd be a spinner bait where you would throw it and retrieve it pretty quick, but I don't retrieve this bait fast at all. You would be really surprised whenever you get one of these things tied on, you get it out. You can pitch that thing in the water and just watch it drop. And as it goes down, that blade's turning. And it's not, depending on the bait, if it's a fluke style bait or a paddle tail style, a paddle tail bait is gonna have a little more drag in the water. It's gonna fall slower. Now, compared to, say, a fluke style bait where it's just a sleek bait, it's going to fall faster because it doesn't have the paddle tail and the bulkier body to slow it down on the fall. So with that being said, guys, it's one of those deals. The finesse rig, clear water. It's, like I said, this bait is very versatile. So you can fish it extremely slow, or you can throw it like a spinner bait. But I would say 85% of the time, I'm fishing it slow, or I have a certain presentation I'm doing with it, which I'm going to get into here in a second. But I just wanted to cover this, guys, on the setup because, like I said, being that the bait's weight is so all over the board from 1/8 ounce to 1 ounce, that you can finesse fish it, and you can also power fish it with a heavier setup. So with that being said, we're going to get on to the next page. All right, guys, another deal here with this bait. This is, as we say, match the hatch. You're going to be pretty much targeting schooling fish, fish that are keyed on offshore structures, creek channels, and points. Now, your electronics play a huge key to locating that style, that style of presentation and locating those fish. So I really depend on my Humminbird Helix 12s. I got the new Mega units, and also I got my Humminbird Helix 10 Mega on the front with the down imaging. As you can see here on the right, I got into some fish. I was throwing the underspin and a 1/2 ounce with the fluke. And all I was doing with that guy is doing a vertical drop on him. Like I said, you can drop that bait in that the spinnerbait blade. The blade spins just on the drop. And so fishing that bait vertically is an awesome way to catch some solid fish. And that's what I did here. I had this school 24.5 feet deep of water. This was out off of a tapering point. The screen lit up. I grabbed my underspin here in a 1/2 ounce, dropped it on it, and it didn't even hit the bottom. It line just stops. So I reeled down, rod tip loaded, cranked them up, fish come right in the boat. And I ended up we probably caught 8 or 9 fish in about 10 minutes there on this one point, just dropping it vertical under the boat. And it's one of those things, guys, you can drop that bait vertical, just shake it. It's pretty awesome with that bait. You can see right there that I caught that fish on. That's the normal Zoom fluke, the smaller one. It's like a 3-inch bait. And the cool thing is the tail isn't up and down. It's laid over. So whenever that bait goes to the bottom and you lift it, the tail actually comes up and actually flutters. Gives that bait a lot more action. So that's one of my go-to baits when I'm fishing that bait vertical. I'll go with the smaller fluke, drop it straight down on those fish, and pretty much just yo-yo it or hop it off the bottom. Or what I'll do is just drop it, hit the bottom, come up about 3 or 4 cranks. As you can see, these fish are pretty close to the bottom there. And then I'll just kind of shake the rod tip, and that'll just spin. And what it does, it gets that bait right up in front of them because, bass's eyes are on top of their head. Most of the time, unless they're actually going down, they're not going to see the bait unless they follow it down. It's got to be up in their sight. So I like to get that bait up about a foot or 2 above them and just shake it there. And what that does is it flutters that blade. We're giving it action. Plus, also the way that tail on that thing is, it causes a lot of movement and a lot of water movement. So great way to catch fish vertical whenever you get them on the graph right below the boat. And also, guys, I have on here countdown method. That's another way that I've caught a lot of really good fish. Lake Comanche, that here in California, was on fire this past fall and through the winter. We went up there one afternoon, and oh my gosh, we put a hurting on those spotted bass up there. We caught those things. We had about 22 to 23 pounds. And what we found was we had a bunch of fish schooled up in this creek channel. And the creek channel was in about 55, 60 feet deep of water. And those fish were in about 25, like pretty much suspended mid-range. What I was doing with that, guys, is I'd throw that bait out there and count it down. 1,000, 2,000, about 3 to 4, and I'd start retrieving that bait. And I'd keep my rod tip at about 10 o'clock. And what I was doing is just kind of shaking that rod and keeping the bait moving, but just shaking it. All I was doing is almost like shaking dart head line, just rod tip moving. The whole rod wasn't stroking, nothing like that. I would just shaking the tip, and what that would do is just bounce the tail of that fluke, and I was just retrieving it. And I was being able to bring it right through that depth range of those suspended fish. And man, they clobbered it. We had a great day. We had a couple of fish that were in the 5-pound class that were, we had 2 spotted bass that were 5 pounds each. And it was just a great day. But that's one of the key ways, guys, to catch those suspended fish is counting that bait down. If you find those fish suspended off a point or in a creek channel, do a couple drops. You got to figure out how fast the bait's dropping. And then once you figure out how fast, say on a 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, on the second count, how deep it's falling per second. Say if it's falling a foot a second, you're going to give it, 10, 15 count and go, because you're down now about 15 feet, and then reel with it. So that's how to get that bait, and as I call the countdown method. Throw it out there, let her drop, bring it, and in an estimated figure there how deep that bait's going and running in that suspended water. So it's a key on those fish that you're seeing on the graph. So, all right, guys, we'll go from there. So we've got the vertical presentation and the countdown method to catch those suspended fish. Now we're going to go on to presentation number 2. This is one of my favorites, guys, for this time of the year. Right now, we're sitting in where the fish are out a little deeper right now. In the morning, it's cooler. These fish in the warm middle of the day, they tend to push off into the creek channel, points, submerged island tops. So what I use here, guys, on the right hand picture is my Navionics Mobile App. This is on my iPhone. Now on there, this is an area of Lake Comanche. I wanted to show this here because this is just loaded with a lot of good stuff, guys. This pink line that runs right down through this gullet here, that's the creek channel. So it looks just pretty much like a roadway, guys. Those fish use that just to make their moves, you know. So now you see all the white areas. These aren't island, they're islands, but they're not island tops per se. What I've done here is I went into my map options, and if you go under fishing mode, you can go in there and you can select a specific depth range. So we're catching these fish, guys, on from 20 to 28 feet. So what I did was I found that these fish were on the submerged island tops next to the creek channel and right off the ledges in the creek channel. So as you can see here, pretty much right in the center of the right picture, you know, the topographical feature there, you have an island top that is pretty much right directly in the center of the picture, right on that creek channel. And you see the dark area there where it's like a black blob there. What that is, guys, is the contour lines are really close together. Now, what that means is when you're reading these the Navionics topographical features, is when the lines are close together like that, guys, there's a steep break. It's just a drop off. So those fish, guys, were piled up right there on that little ledge, and early in the morning, we crushed them right on top of that island top. And to get back to what I was saying, that the white areas is not out of water. I went into my fishing mode, turned it on my Navionics mobile app, and you can actually set a specific depth range. So what I did was I set my depth range to 20 and the max depth to 28. And what it does is highlights the areas on your map that is between 20 feet and 28 feet of water. So right there alone, that shows me the areas in the specific spots in that area that are 20 to 28 feet of water. That's a huge help on really keying in on, I mean, there's just a huge key to keying in on the specific pattern. When you figure out what depth those fish are keying on it and being able to set that and run and gun each of those island tops, it's money in the bank, guys. That you know, you're not wasting your time on the water is so much more efficient whenever you use technology to your advantage. So like that right there, you can pretty much play connect the dots. You don't have to idle off of one and you're watching your graph and, oh, the graph starts coming up shallow. Oh, I found another island top. Now, when you have the technology, you can waypoint each one of those and run to each one of them fast. And like if I was in practice for an event, I'd have those all white spots waypointed, and I would spend about 10 minutes on each of them. If I felt that that there would be a fish there that would move up out of the channel, I'd fish it. If not, I would idle over it with my down scan and my side scan and kind of check the area to check for fish before I spent any time fishing it. So technology, guys, really helps out. So once again, presentation. I got my areas. I found out they were on the ledge there and on top of that island in the morning. So in the morning, we were pulling up to the islands, and I was making long casts. And I'd let that bait go all the way to the bottom, guys. And what I would do is, a lot of guys talk about the yo-yo technique or ripping it. I myself don't really throw it aggressively. I'll throw that bait out there, make sure it goes to the bottom. And what I'll do as soon as it hits the bottom, guys, or the line stops, I always lift, because a lot of times, guys, with these style baits, you know, this underspin, like I said, it's very versatile. A lot of times fish will grab it on the fall. So whenever you're starting out throwing this bait, guys, Every time you throw that thing, as soon as the line stops, watch the line as it falls. If the line jumps, click, set the hook. You got a fish. He grabbed it on the fall. And if not, you're not paying attention. Can't really get yourself to pay attention to the line on all your casts. As soon as that line stops and that bait hits the bottom, lift up. And if there's any tension, guys, reel set. Just give that thing 3 or 4 reels real quick, and a lot of times there's going to be a fish on the other end that you didn't catch that picked that bait up on the draw. So I throw that thing out there, let it go to the bottom, lift up, let it flutter back down. I'll reel up the slack, lift up, let it back down. Shake it a couple times, then I'll lift up. I pretty much am just swimming that bait off the bottom, just raising it up 6 inches or so, fluttering back down. And then every 3 or 4 pumps, I'll let it hit the bottom and I'll shake it a few times. Then I'll go again. And that's pretty much mixing up the yo-yo technique, guys, with my finesse yo-yo, is just slow pumps and giving and adding a little more action to it, just kind of shaking it. What that does is acts kind of like a wounded minnow or a dying minnow in the bottom, and those fish eat it. Bump and go. This one here, guys, is kind of, if I'm on, say, one of the flats up here on the right picture of the top dropper feature, you have your top island, kind of looks like a kidney bean type of thing. There's a flat going off to the channel, right? You got a lot of lines. Or not a lot of lines, but you've got about 10 lines there that are spaced out pretty far. That means it's a tapering bank. Those fish, guys, can pull up and sit right there on that ridge, that creek channel ridge, and in the morning feed on that flat, that taper off of that island. And now that style there, if I'm going to be fishing a flat or that tapering section, I'm going to do the bump and go. I throw that thing as far as I can, let it go to the bottom, lift up, always lift up. And then I'll give that thing 3 or 4 cranks, let it fall back to the bottom. 3 or 4 cranks, let it fall to the bottom. 3 or 4 cranks, let it fall to the bottom. You're pretty much just swimming that underspin right off the bottom, but just making sure you have bottom contact, swim it 3 or 4 feet, bottom contact, and then fire another cast as far as you can with it, and just cover water, guys. Like I said, this is a very versatile bait. You can cover a ton of water with it. So going from there, this is kind of something here, guys, that it separates a lot of guys that go out and throw these underspins. I've touched on a lot of things here. I've touched on my techniques, the yo-yo, the finesse yo-yo, the bump and go, as I call it, where you're covering more water, and then uphill. A lot of guys don't understand this technique, and it's kind of funny because it's nice that they do it, but it's funny because whenever I'm fishing this technique, and say I'm on a point where you can tell that I'm close to the bank, what I'll do, guys, is I'll get up there, turn my side imaging on, scan a point, and if I see a school of fish on it or even just bait fish on it, I'll stop and give it a few casts. So I'll go around the point, don't go across the top of it, don't disrupt it, stay off of it. Go around, come back up on the back side of the point. Like I said, stay off the main part of it. You're going to go around the point, come back up in the shallows, drop your trolling motor onto the point. Now you got your boat in like 5 feet of water. And now you got your boat sitting in 5. You're going to cast that underspin out into the deep water and let it drop. Once again, watch your line, because if there's bait suspended and there's fish suspended out off that point, they're going to hit it on the drop. But let it go to the bottom, and on working uphill is an awesome way to get a lot more bites. It takes a little more patience. When you're working that bait uphill, guys, you will get a few more snags because you're pulling it up against rocks and against all the, whatever you're up against. You're going to be battling it. But have a little patience with it. And definitely on a presentation like this, I go to my 12-pound fluorocarbon and retie it every so often, because you don't want to snap off a good fish on the hook set because you've been dragging it uphill and fraying the line. So, like I said, position the boat, long cast out to deep water, let it go to the bottom, and I'm pretty much yo-yoing it all the way back uphill to you at the boat. And guys, this presentation is deadly. I mean, it's one of those things. These bass, they're predators. They're looking to ambush the bait fish and just put it, beating on them. And the bass like whenever they can pin something. So whenever that bait is presented to them uphill, they feel like they can corral it. They're actually pushing into the shallows, so they feel like they're just going to pin it against the bank and have a better chance of eating it. I'm a firm believer of bringing my baits uphill. Now, if you had that boat out there in 50 feet of water, you throw that underspin in 5 feet of water, you're going to drag it, yo-yo it down. You're going to have to let line out as you go down, else it's just going to pendulum out under the boat. The whole nine. It's not as productive. Plus, those fish, they can see it, and then they're gonna take a look at it and be like, you know what? I gotta chase that minnow out in the middle of the abyss out there. That's gonna be a battle. They're not gonna want to do it as much as seeing a wounded minnow crawling uphill with nowhere to go. So keep that in mind on your presentation with this, guys. Whenever you're fishing that bait, especially on long points, bring that bait to the shallowest point. Make that fish that's following it think, oh, he's all mine. He has nowhere to go. This is going to be easy. I don't have to chase him across, out into the abyss. I can just pin him against the bank and that'll be lunch. So that being said, that's my number one go-to if I'm fishing points or shallow flats. Just always position yourself to the shallowest position you can and fish the bait to the shallow side. And now, like I was saying, guys, it was kind of funny because I get the boat positioned, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit, but always put the odds in your favors, guys. I get up there in the 5-foot range, drop my Minn Kota talons, boat secure, and I'm fishing. And I've had guys come up before, and I'm like, hey, stop. Don't go across the point, because they're actually coming up to me wondering if I'm broke down because my boat looks like it's up on the bank, but that's actually the presentation I'm doing. So it's kind of funny. It's like, thanks for checking on me, guys, but you just kind of spooked my fish off that point. But anyways, guys, hope this helps you here. Yo-yo technique, finesse yo-yo, the bump and go, cover a lot of water, and then the uphill is just key presentations that I'll tell you right now, 90% of guys, weekend warriors will take an underspin and treat it like a spinner bait. They'll go out and just cover water with it and just try to, exactly throw it like spinnerbait. And they'll catch fish on it here and there, run across school fish, and fish will eat it. But when you methodically throw this thing with different presentations or different structures you're up against, it'll definitely bump the odds in your favor. Next page. Like I said, guys, for the presentations that I've talked to you guys about, the finesse yo-yo, the uphill, like I said, I use my Minn Kota talon a lot. Guys think it's just for bed fishing. No, I use it on my uphill presentations. I can be deep cranking. I can be throwing a jig, swim bait, underspin. I love positioning my boat shallow, using my talons year round, and presenting the bait that way. So I always use the accessories that will stack things in my favor. And also this year, I've been fortunate enough to have the Minn Kota Ultra X trolling motor. It's been a game changer. That spot lock, guys, is something else. You can get out on those submerged island tops and creek channels, hook a fish, click spot lock, and you can land that fish anywhere on the boat. Get them, pole, whatever you got to do, go right back to the front, and you don't have to worry about being blown 30 yards off the spot or trying to get the boat back in position. That spot lock is killer, guys. It's a game changer. It's a really cool deal. So my two keys that I like, that I use with this presentation and offshore fishing is that spot lock and then the Minn Kota talon, guys. All right, guys, we're pretty much wrapping this thing up. Like I said, we talked about a little over a half hour here. Here's another thing I wanted to touch on. This is the Clip and Coal from Cal Coast Fishing, guys. I believe this is an awesome product because we're looking for to protect the future of the sport. So It's one of those deals. These things are puncture free. The clips hold on to the fish really snug. It's a great item, guys. Check them out, especially all you tournament fishermen. It's one of those deals. They make a money beam, a balance beam that goes with these clipping coals, and it's the real deal, guys. They're a great product. They don't rust, preserves the fish for the future of the sport. So just check them out, guys. Just want to throw that in there because, like I said, I'm big about preserving. I got a 4-year-old son that I'm grooming into the fishing world, you know. So I'm just hoping we can keep these fisheries around long enough for the future. All right, guys, touching base on this thing again. I greatly appreciate all your support coming out and watching this. Like I said, feel free if you have any questions. My email is thuckaby@navionics.com. If you have any questions about tonight's webinar, feel free to shoot me an email. Even if you want to chat about fishing, shoot me an email, guys. I'll get back to you on it. We can chat some. I always like talking fishing, so any questions, feel free to ask. All right, guys, let's see what we got here. Got a couple, let's see, as far as chats. Rick Rush, how's it going, buddy? Thanks for coming out this evening. Let's see here. Does the bait try and roll over because of the drag created by an underblade? Rob, if you're on board with a steel, great answer. This with underspins. That's a great answer or great question, guys. He's asking if the bait rolls over due to the blade. Now, with the EcoPro Tungsten Thunderspin that I showed you guys here, the head of it is almost in a triangular formation where the bottom is flat and has a radius flat on it, which really keeps the bait upright. It does not, the EcoPro Tungsten Thunderspin does not want to roll over. There's a few other brands out there, guys. You'll see the heads are tall and they're like a diamond shape or a pretty much just like a, what would you call it? Kind of look like a football. There's no kind of keel to it or anything. It's like that per se, and those do roll. So that's one of the main reasons, guys, that I'm a huge fan of the EcoPro Tungsten Underspin, is because that bait has a flat bottom and a radius nose. So when I'm throwing that thing and bouncing it off the bottom, it lands flat and stays flat when I yo-yo it. That bait stays true and runs perfect. So that is a great question. Whenever you go to buy your underspins, pay attention to the design of the head. If they got a flat on the bottom or the nose, that's what you want. Those ones that are just kind of like an egg shape, they tend to wobble a lot. So that's a great question. But these baits do not roll due to the spinner blade on the bottom. Thanks again for the great webinar. Thank you, Mario. Greatly appreciate the good word. Donis Crawford, do you find underspins more effective in the summer or fall? Donis, question here is between the fall and the summertime. Now, we talked a little bit about presentations as far as creek channels and the submerged island tops. That right there is a huge key. Right now, in the summertime, I like to fish the submerged island tops for these fish. And it's one of those deals, you can load the boat really fast when you get on the right island top that's got the fish loaded on it. And then in the fall, I concentrate more to the creek channels. When they get in there chasing the bait up and down the creek channels, you can do really, really well in the fall chasing the creek channel fish and doing the countdown method with that underspin. So it's pretty much, you have to adapt to the time of the year. So in the summertime, I really focus on submerged island tops. And in the fall, I will pretty much turn my focus into the creek channels. And now with that being said, the fall does get, I would say the fall would be a little bit better on the bite because those fish really group up, school up, and get after those schooling bait fish. So You can get on a in a good creek channel that's loaded with fish in it and put a whacking on them real well. And like I said, you can pretty much do the same on an island top, but once you catch a few fish from an island top, you usually disrupt it. So if I catch a few good fish off an island top, I usually leave it and come back in like half hour to kind of let those fish simmer back into it and simmer down, because they get pretty skittish once you start pulling them off of the island tops. But in the creek channel, they kind of stay with the bait. They'll come up feeding, go down with a leaper, feed with them. You can start picking them off here and there, but the bait's always moving. So really, they don't scatter as much per se in the creek channels than the island tops. So I would say for numbers, fish in the fall, you're going to catch more numbers. All right, Ernest McIntyre, can you fish the underspin only in clear water? No, definitely not. You can fish it in muddy water. That underspin I showed you guys, that is the owner underspin they have, where you can Texas rig the paddle tail. I throw that thing in muddy water on the California Delta, and that thing catches fish hands down in the muddy water. I use a paddle tail in a darker color. It could be like a watermelon green or a watermelon black flake, or even a black and blue paddle tail, like black with blue flake paddle tail on that underspin. And you just want a darker color to give it a better shadow. And those fish will eat that thing in the muddy water too. Don't ever worry about that. Though that underspin blade and a dark profile bait, they'll eat that thing in the muddy water also. All right, couple more questions here. Nick Harina, how would you fish an underspin around a near vertical cliff face? Nick, with a vertical cliff, what I like to do is, that's one of those deals on a vertical cliff, is I'll make casts to it and I'll just use the vertical presentation. I'll keep the boat off there because I don't want to spook those fish off per se. But what I would do on a cliff face is I would throw it up on the cliff, and you're pretty much going to just kind of guide that thing down and bounce it down the cliff. Or if it's just a sheer wall, I would look for any shade pockets, any indentations, anything you could really scan or see that would have something that the fish would tuck into, if it was even like a little shade ridge or even a little outcropping. Those fish will stack on that like a point too. So you throw that underspin to it, and pretty much you're just going to give it a vertical presentation on a cliff. Throw it up there, bounce it down, and like I said, watch your line, because when that line jumps on the fall, that bait's got it. So it's just one of those deals. It's going to be a vertical presentation, and I'm not talking about just dropping it straight under the boat. You're going to cast it, and pretty much you can let it fall. And then also remember, whenever you pull that bait, say it doesn't go all the way to the bottom and it stops, you can pull that bait and it's going to pendulum underneath you. So you got to be real cautious about what's going on. If you throw that bait up there and it stops and you go to pull it, what I always do, as soon as I pull it, I'll free spool and let more line out, because I want that bait to go vertical down that wall instead of pendulum out to the boat. So it's pretty good technique. Yeah, I mean, you can catch a lot of fish doing it once you master it, but it takes a lot more focusing on. It's not as simple. You got to throw that thing up there, walk it down there, and walk it down the face of the cliff as you're feeding line with it. So that one takes a little bit of time and practice and just feel and watching your line, but that's how you would do it. It would be a vertical. You'd want to stay off of it and fish it vertically. Robert, are there any specific features that you look for in an underspin? Also, do you ever change the blades to smaller one or larger blade? Yes, great question. The main thing, Robert, that I like I said, touched on here a few minutes ago about the head profile of the Eco Pro Tungsten's Underspin. It has the flat So that bait runs true. That's one of my biggest things I want. I want the bait to run true, and I want it to have a little bit of a radius there. So when I throw that thing out there and goes to the bottom, I can drag it and not have it rolling over and doing weird stuff like that. I want the flat. I want the head of that bait to have that nice wider flat where it can pretty much drag along like have a nice area to drag along instead of just kind of rolling over per se on a contoured bottom. So I want the bottom of the underspin to be flat, and a lot of things that separate, or the main thing to me that really separates it besides the profile of the head is the hook. And that's one of the things, this Eco Pro Tungsten one, I don't want to sound like I'm beating a dead horse here, like for this Eco Pro Tungsten one, but it's a great product because it uses the tungsten head with the profile that I like, and the hook is a trocar hook. It's really strong and really sharp. A lot of these other guys, they'll use no-name hooks. And 2 years ago, when I first had some underspins that given to me to test out, I hit the water, and it's our third or fourth trip out when I started putting things together. I hooked a good one and snapped the hook off right at the head of the underspin, and I was like, oh wow, that's no good. So tied another one up, caught a few fish on it, set the hook on a good one, and I'm like, oh, here's a good one. Fighting it, got her up to the boat. She made a death run under the boat real hard, broke the hook again. So I was like, man, no more of that one. It really made me leery of the hook setup and some of those underspins. So, like I said, pay attention to a good, make sure it has a good hook and the right profile head for the presentation you're trying to achieve. Todd, let's see here. Todd Carrico. I have been told that the fish might bump it 2 or 3 times before they eat it. Have you experienced this? Yeah. Now, on that, you do, a lot of the spotted bass will bump it. It's weird. It's really weird. And that's one of the things that why I really recommend a rod with a solid backbone and a quick tip. When you're reeling that thing, especially if you're doing the countdown and you're throwing it on suspended fish and you're reeling it through them, you'll feel it. Just they'll bump it. It's like, huh. And you keep reeling, but the reel tip doesn't load. You're like, okay, she's not there. And then boom, not there. And then the weirdest thing will be is on the third try, your line will just go slack as you're reeling. She swam up and got it. She didn't swipe at that time. She come up and she actually picked it up and she's coming at you. So now you got to reel and give her the hook, set the hook on her. So the main thing is, guys, with fishing this thing, you will get bumps. And it's like, how am I getting bumped? Especially, not getting a hook in them if I'm throwing an exposed hook. But a lot of times, guys, like I said, I won't sweep. Like I said, I won't, I don't drop the hammer on my hook set. I reel sweep, and I won't reel sweep until I see the rod load a little bit. And I know that fish has got it. Because if he slaps it and you rip it away from him, he ain't coming back. You pretty much lost that guy. His attention's going somewhere else. So if you just keep it coming, he slaps it, that rod doesn't load up, you just keep going at the same pace, he's going to come back for it. And when that rod tip loads, you give him the bad news, put the hook in him. Dave Bingham, how would you fish it in timber or grass? Dave, on this one here, when I'm fishing timber or grass, I always throw the owner style, which is the Texas rig style. That one right there, bud, is just bulletproof. Remember now, if you're throwing in timber, make sure you got some good fluorocarbon on. That's abrasion resistant. I would throw, if I'm going to fish in the wood, I'm going to throw probably 15-pound fluorocarbon on it, just due to the fact that when that good fish gets it, he's going to come out of the base of that tree most likely when he comes up and gets that bait. And he's going to try to go down into the base of the tree is going to be the issue. So you want to have a good line on there. So if it rubs on some branches or anything like that, you still got some, you still got some strength to it. So, but definitely the owner style Texas rigged underspin is the way to go for fishing the grass and the trees. The grass, you can throw that thing like, like a Texas rigged swim bait or anything else. You can throw that thing out there and it'll come through that grass really easy with the Texas rig style. And also a tree. You can throw that thing across a tree, bring it over the top. Maybe a spinning fish come up and get it. Excuse me. Or you can fish it vertical on that tree. You pitch it up there and let it drop through the tree limbs. But like I said, make sure when you get a hook in that fish, you got to get them out of there. So on definitely timber and grass, Dave, Texas rig, owner style, underspins the way to go. All right, guys, I believe we have it covered here. So just want to say thank you guys for everybody coming out and spending some time with me this evening. I had a good time. I hope you guys picked something up for this and it was helpful. Pick something up from this and it's helpful. And also, guys, I'm going to be giving away a little tackle pack here with some underspins and some swim baits also. So be looking at your email here shortly. I'm going to do that this evening or first thing in the morning. I'll send out to the email to the lucky winner. And best of luck to y'all. Thanks again for coming out. Talk to you guys soon.